These old mountains, they hold a lot of secrets over time, and unfortunately, so did a lot of its people. Now, we'll be talking about mountain witches. Now, this is a subject that people think, oh, Donnie, you don't know what you're talking about. There is no such thing. Oh, our elders could tell you so much different. And some of them are still around today to share their stories, what they believe, and what really happened to them. So we'll look at this old legend and thing that still goes on in these mountains. So let's get started. Now everybody's heard of witches. They're just fantasy tales, fairy tales, folklore, and stuff to scare the kids. I've heard them all my life growing up. My grandmother used to tell me about them all the time, these witches flying, moving around, trying to find little kids. And she'd scare us to death with visions of a witch looking like this, going around snatching up little kids and eating them. But that was just for the children. But on a serious note, fact is stranger than fiction in these old mountains. Now, best I can figure some research, this is not my specialty. I'm not much on this subject, but I thought I would share this with you. Best I could come up with the different kinds of witches in these old mountains over the years that our elders have told us about is one, of course, the evil witches. These are ones that aligned themselves with evil, the devil, and all the dark arts. And these are the ones that cause mischief in these mountains for so much misery for so many people. And the next up is the witch doctor. The witch doctor is the people that would counteract the evil spells and hexes put on people and farms and animals by the evil witches. They were the good witches. And then there was the medicine witches, which cured all the ailments and took care of all the sicknesses through the natural herbs of the mountains. They knowed all the roots and plants to cure people. And that's what they done, more like a medicine woman. And the fourth one is water witches. This is a common one. It still goes on today. I know I can do this myself. This don't work for many people. This is where you find water and things under the ground. So let's get started. Now, a lot of people think, well, there ain't nobody believes in that crap. Well, yes, they do. The elders did, and they still do to this day. Look at these barns. Now, when I growed up, these barns were just barns. I never seen none of these hex symbols put on barns. It's more of a trend nowadays than it did anything, just decorative. But it wasn't back then, especially in Pennsylvania and the northern Appalachias. They put these on barns to protect from evil spirits and hexes from mountain witches. You can see here, they're still going on today. But like I said, it's more of a trend now and just decorative. We'll start out with some history. There's a lot of history on these witches. Now, way back in Europe, they had a lot of witch problems. They accused a lot of innocent people, I'd say, of witchery, and they executed them. They burned them at the stake or hung them. And a lot of them escaped over to this country, and a lot of people that come into this country, especially German, Dutch, they brought a lot of their traditions, and unfortunately, I would say some witch traditions too. And a lot of people have been executed in the East for witchery, and a lot of people have suffered for it, some innocent, some not. And back in these old mountains, they migrated with the settlers. And the old history here in Tennessee, everybody's heard of the Bell Witch. Right here's a story on it. Everybody knows it. If you don't, it's not hard to find. Even done a lot of research in it. They can't figure that one out. A lot of newspaper articles on it too, from way back. Even one of our experts, Andrew Jackson, had problems with this. History on that. Now these old mountains, these people live so hard. Some of the remote, ruggedest places you'd ever see, and they tried their best to scratch a living off the land. And some people were good, and some were not. Now, a lot of these old people, especially the old women, they could tell you tales about these witches. There's all kinds of stories that they've told that hexes is put on them and their livestock and their family, and all kinds of history about this stuff. I'm just going to touch briefly on the different witches. And most of these people in these mountains were real religious. They attended church regularly. They believed in God, the Lord Jesus Christ, and they read the Bible all the time. And the Bible says of all this evil in the world, and they believed it. They believe in evil curses, and they believe in hexes. That's just like superstition in these mountains. Now, first up we talk about is the evil witches. These are the ones that put hexes on people and their farms, their livestock, their family, people. They were just up to mischief, no good. A lot of people said reports that when they milked the cows, the cow would go dry, not superstition, but their cows would, instead of giving milk, they would give blood. And they would claim the witches had put a hex on them. So they didn't know who it was. You never know who was doing this against the family or the farms or the people. They never did know. Somebody had a against the family or just a family feud. You never did know. They couldn't really know who it was, so they couldn't just accuse people. If they did, they'd be their own mountain justice here. They didn't need nothing else. They'd take care of it themselves. That's the way it was in these old mountains.
The Beverly Hillbillies.
So they never did know who it was. So they would get a witch doctor, somebody that would counteract these spells that the evil witch was putting on these farms or these people. And whatever that bad witch,
they're the Melungeon people,
they put on them, the witch doctor would counteract it. So whatever happened that they had made a curse or a hex on, it would reverse it. It would happen to the person that caused it. And I've heard all kinds of stories about this. Now, these old people in these lands, they worked hard. And they had a lot of sickness in here too. Remember, now we're going to talk about medicine witches. These people didn't have no doctors, no medicine. They lived off the land and the cures that the land had. Now, what we be talking about is what they call granny witches, medicine women, herb people. These people solved and fixed cures off herbs, roots off the land, especially the old Native American people. They really know these herbs, roots, and plants to cure people. And a lot of these babies, they got sick, they couldn't help them, but a lot of them, they cured them too with these roots and medicine. That's the way it was in these mountains. Now, it's said that these medicine women and these old granny doctors, they could cure a nosebleed with a verse out of the Bible. And the verse, and when I passed by thee, I saw thee polluted in thy own blood. I said unto thou, waste in thy own blood live. Yea, I said unto thee, when thou hast waste in thy own blood live. That's the Bible verse, and it stopped bleeding. We get into these mountains again, we get into water witches. This is the last of it. The known witches. This is a common thing. They just called them that because it was mysterious how they could find water. Now, some people could do this, and it'll work for a lot of people that don't even know it'll work for. But some people, it don't work. Here they use willow sticks, different types of wood, and it didn't matter how sex you was. If you was able to do it, you could do it. Mental, this is one they still cannot comprehend. It's a mental thing. There's a force in nature, but it don't work for everyone. Now here, this is me. This is what I use. It does work for me. CBD years and years ago, somebody showed it to me, and I found my busted water lines and stuff. It's just simple coat hangers I use with no handles. And when you come across what your mind looking for, it will cross, and there it be. And I'm absolutely positive that it works because I've used it. And you can make your own. Just an old regular metal coat hanger. You cut it here. I just showed this for an example. And here's what I've been using. This is how I cut them and bend them. Put them in my hand. This is a force in nature that man cannot understand. But it does work. I factually know it works. You can even buy these online. I was surprised to see these when I was doing some research. You can buy them. But why buy them when you can make them? Now, these old mountains and these old people, they're real religious, but they're superstitious. And they've seen things happen in these mountains that we could ever comprehend the stories that they could tell us. These mountains are so beautiful, but they're so mysterious, and they're still forces in nature that man will never understand. Most of these old stories are just wise tales and folklore, but there's a lot of truth in them too. So whatever you hear is a folklore or a little legend, there's some truth behind it or it wouldn't be there. These mountains are so mysterious, but there's things that man does not know. He thinks he knows, but he don't know nothing. That's just the way. And I hope you've enjoyed this. I just touched briefly on some of these mountain witches. If you really get in this, I'll leave a link in the description under the video where you could really listen to some of these old people that's been interviewed on mountain witches. So I want to thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
It's coming right out again. All right, I don't want to rush.
The disappearance of Dennis Martin is well known.
All right, I'm on mute now. Goodness gracious alive. All right, so basically, yes, bro, you said it sounds like they describing some Aborigines. They are. So I believe that the history being so convoluted, these people have been around for a while. Obviously going back there in the Tennessee, Kentucky, and Virginia area. So, this was lands covered by the indigenous or aboriginal or Indians, right? So when it comes to the Indians, these people were of a mixed tribe. So the Melungeon people, which is who they derive from, there was a gentleman, a Spanish invader by the name of Hernando de Soto. He had 800 men, and they came with about 200 slaves, is what the story was, and into the Indian village, and that was near a Zimmerman Island. You're in Virginia, sis. Are you familiar with Zimmerman Island or anything around that Indian village? And just a side note on that. So the Zimmerman Island, right, and the village, the Indian village there was a slaughter of an Aboriginal, indigenous Indian boy by a Mr. George Zimmerman. Do you guys remember that story about George Zimmerman and oh my gosh, how did I forget this boy's name? I just remember the Zimmerman, that weird name. There were so many slangs of these kids, but y'all know who I'm talking about. Trayvon Martin. So the little boy, yes, sis, check it out. If you do, please take some pictures from me, baby. If you get a chance to take pictures, I would really greatly appreciate it. You can send them to me, what have you, so on and so forth. So George Zimmerman, as you guys remember, George Zimmerman with the slang of Trayvon Martin, right? That was symbolism, you know. Oh, Tavon. Thank you, sis. Tavon Martin. So that was symbolism of this, you know, these things happening when they had these certain events. You know, they'll use symbolism within the news, showing the tragedy. Same thing with the George Foreman, Georgia. I'm so bad with names, y'all. Whoever the guy that just got killed. No, you know, no disrespect to his name. George Floyd. So yeah, these things are psyops, guys. I don't know if you guys want to just keep staying in the fantasy world, but I'm gonna keep trying to wake y'all up. Wake up. Shit, I don't know what else to do, but keep putting it out there. But either way, let's go on. So in this Indian village, there's a place called Zimmerman Island. So with that, these people were pillaged. The Indians, Aboriginal, whatever you would like to call them. So the children were then invaded by these Spanish colonialists, Hernando de Soto's, his whole expansion of people. He had 800 men, and he said about 200 slaves. So there were about 1,000 people that came and overtook this Indian village at one time. They just came, you know, they in the mountains too, so they sneaking up on them because they ain't expecting nothing. You can imagine, they just overcame them, you know. So I'm pretty sure they killed most of them off, you know, left most of the women pregnant with these seeds, so on and so forth. As I keep telling you guys, they keep planting these black seeds everywhere. When they plant the black seed anywhere, it is now an ionic seed, and it has a root that it can grow into the Indian, the Aboriginal. You know, I'm getting so tired of getting caught up in these names. People are acting so weird within this YouTube stuff, but it's not really important about the name. I just want to make sure you know who we're talking about. So maybe I'll just start naming them 3 or make up my own name. So shit. But either way, the Indian, Aboriginal, indigenous persons, these people were invaded by the Spanish colonies when Mr. De Soto came in. And they also had people that were from other areas like Africa. You know, they had some Slavic slaves. They had other slaves as well. So when they came in invading these settlers, they started mixing and mingling with these people, and mixing and mingling with them, and spreading their seed, as I keep telling you that these people do. This is how they created a nation of these particular Melungeon people. So I'm going to show you guys some information on them. Hold on one second. It went back a little too far, so I want to make sure I'm showing you guys the right one. I was going to show you another one on the witches, but you get the idea. And these are witches. So when the brother said, it sounds like they're talking about the Aboriginal. Yeah, they're talking about the traditions that came down from the ancestors of our people, because as they got whited out down the line. You know, of course, you're still going to know the traditions. You're going to follow the same thing. Whatever's going on, how it go in the hood, that's what it is. You know, that's how they do. So let me see. One more video for you guys, and then we're gonna let's see, is this a good one? This one's pretty long. I don't want to do too long one. We'll do this one. I'm not familiar with this particular video, but We'll talk about a couple different things. Another thing I wanted to tell you as far as some people. So, President Lincoln, how you guys have heard the story about President Lincoln. They're like, oh, some people say, he was black, this, and that, da, da, da, da. He wasn't necessarily black, but he was a Melungeon. He was a Melungeon people. So he was one of those mixed races. So was Elvis Presley, a couple of other people. When you see a lot of these Caucasians with this thick, luxurious hair, that should tell you it's a mix of the hair. You know how it is when the hair is mixed, right? I mean, like, come on, guys. You know what it is. So let's play this video. We're going to get into this real quick. And so you guys can get a little bit of an idea on some of these as well. All right. Give me 1 moment. Let me share the screen. So yeah, when we think about these people, when we hear certain stories, oh, they were mixed, this and that, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there's definitely reasons for that. Having this blood, our blood is very strong. There's something called the 1 drop rule. So when it comes to the 1 drop rule, our blood is so strong that it actually, it just knocks out anything else. Anything else is irrelevant when it comes to being tainted or touched by our blood. All right, let's get into it, guys.
Abraham Lincoln, Amerika Birleşik
Devletleri'nin
Devletleri'nin
16. Devlet Başkanı 1863'te Amerika'da köleliği. Ava Gardner, Amerikalı oyuncu. Amerikan filminin hazırladığı listeye göre yüzyılın en önemli 100 yıldızında. Elvis, Amerikalı sevi, müzisyen, aktör. Tom Hanks, Amerikalı Oscar ödüllü aktör. Liza Alter, Amerikalı ünlü yazar. Pek çok dile çevrildi. Amerikan sanat ve siyaset dünyasının en isimlerinin yaşadıkları coğrafyada binler kilometre uzaklıkla ne ilgileri var? Daha önemlisi, onların kökenlerinde Osmanlı olma ihtimalleri var mı? Küçük adalardan birinde yaşayan Brand Kennedy bir sabah uyandığında kendisini yürüyemeyecek kadar halsiz hissetti. Zaten uzun süredir nefes darlığı çekiyordu. Esmer teninde meydana gelen kırmızı lekeler, ense tarafındaki yumrular daha fazla yayılmış, yüzü ise gittikçe soluklaşmıştı. Kendisine kalsa birkaç gün evde dinlenir, iyileşmeye bakardı. Ama ailesi ona bırakmadı, hastaneye götürdü.
Brent Kennedy with disease in the 1980s that very uncommon for people of a Scots-Irish background, which is what he believed his family was.
İlk bakın Rocky Dağı humması gibi görünüyordu. Pireler yoluyla yayılan bu tehlikeli hastalığa tutulmuş olması onu korkutmaya yetiyordu. Uzun süren tahliller sonucunda Rocky Dağı humasına yakalanmadığı anlaşıldı. Fakat konulan teşhis Amerikalılarda pek rastlanılmayan bir hastalıktı. Akne.
Do anyone find it strange that these people, every time they go somewhere, there starts the diseases? The diseases start, people start getting sick, they come there sick, they end up sick, they leave there sick, they make the other people damn sick. So, if you guys are familiar with what's going on with the biochemical reaction of two things that are fusing together that shouldn't be together, this is what happens. They're mixing, and this is when they start infiltrating the land with the Black Seed, and they start infiltrating the womb of an indigenous person of that soil, there's an imbalance. A woman, you know, if you have any kind of imbalance within your feminine area, you're going to have some things going on that are going to be like not so comfortable. So your body, when it's taking on a new chemical or new compound or new particular matter that it's bringing into its environment, there's going to be a disruption, therefore an illness, therefore some type of sickness, therefore some type of disease, as they would say, right? So when these people mix, they come and they mix, they plant their Black Seed and they plant disease, and they plant certain energies within the atmosphere. They bring plagues and all of these sorts of things, right? So we have to keep this in mind. Ye are not, as Sis said in the chat, I see you, Sis, we are not evenly yoked.
Bu şaşırtıcıydı. Brent Kennedy, dostlar arasında İrlanda'ya uzanan kökleriyle övünen biriydi. Bilgiyle Amerika'ya göçtü. Ve Akdeniz anemisi ulaşmış olabileceği ilginç bir durum. Acaba eksik bir nokta mı vardı? 6 ay süren tedavi sürecinden sonra geçmiş olarak hastaneden ayrıldı. Fakat yakalandığı hastalığın hikayesini öğrenme isteği onu başka bir tarihin içine sürükledi.
That got him asking some questions about his sensitivity, because questions that had kind of been in the back of his mind already. Later, he got a diagnosis of familial Mediterranean fever, which just seemed to reinforce the questions that he had about his own ancestry. So he began working on this, looking into it.
Dikkatini çeken ilk şey, ailesinin ve akrabalarının ten renklerinin diğer Amerikalılardan farklı olduğuydu. Ne beyaz ne de zenciydiler. Amerikan yerlilerini andırdıkları oluyordu ama yerli de değillerdi. Üstelik çok eskiden hem kendi aile geçmişlerinde hem de aklarında Akdeniz anemisi semptomlarına rastlanmıştı. Bu çözmeye çalışırken bir kelimeyle tanıştı. Melungeon.
Could you please tell us if you know?
No. No.
You have no idea.
No.
Thank you.
No, sir. Do not.
You have.
Mom, Dad, and them always used to say the fish part Melungeon, but I just figured they just keep.
But you've heard of the term Melungeon.
Yes, sir. But other than knowing anything about it, I don't know.
Aslında bu kelimeyi hatırlıyordu. Çocukluğunda ellerinde çakmaklı tüfeklerle üçerli beşerli gruplar halinde dolaşan belalı kişiler görmüş. Göz göze gelmemeye dikkat ettiği kişinin utanç ve sıkılgan tavırları hala aklındaydı. Amerikan toplumunun en alttan sayıldıkları için böyle çekingen tavır olduğunu düşünürdü hep. Ailesinin bu kişilere karşı soğuk davranması neden kaynaklanıyordu? Neden onlardan bahsetmemeye özen gösterdi? Sanki yüzyıllardır saklanan bir sır kutusuna ulaşmış, anahtarın yerini arıyordu. Kimdi bu Melungeonlar? Ailesiyle bağlantıları ne olabilirdi?
Very vividly as a young kid in elementary school, riding the bus to school, and once in a while you'd come to a particular place in the road where there would be houses up, as we say here, in the back of the holler, so to speak. And somebody would say such and such kids were Melungeon kids, and it was a bad thing. It was meant as a negative.
Brent Kennedy'nin aile fotoğrafları arasında gördükleri de onu şaşırtmaya yetmişti. Fotoğraftakiler İngiliz veya İrlandalılardan çok çocukluğundan aklında kalan Melungeonları andırıyordu. Ne tam beyaz, ne tam zenci, ne kızılderili, ne de tam bir melezdiler. Akdeniz'in esmer tenli insanlarına daha çok benziyorlardı. Aile dolabı karıştırıldıkça, kökleri oldukça derinlere uzanan haksızlık, zulüm, sürgün ve kaçaklıkla alakalı birçok belge çıkmaya başladı. İşte o zaman anladı ki ailesi de bir Melungeon'du. Artık mezardan gelen çığlığa cevap verme zamanı gelmişti.
This is my dad. Can you see him? He's handsome. He looks like a movie star, doesn't he? His name is William Harvey Mullins. He died in 1986, and you can believe he did not even know the word Melungeon.
Peki bu Melungeonlar kimlerdi? Bu ismin kökenleri nereden geliyordu? Niçin devamlı olarak dışlanmışlardı? Hangi yönleriyle Amerikan toplumundan farklıydılar? Ve en önemlisi Akdeniz'le bağlantıları neydi? Araştırdıkça yeni sorular, yeni bilmeceler çıktı karşısına. Bulduğu her cevap onu 1988 yılının sıcak günlerinden alıp tarihin derinliklerine doğru sürüklemeye başladı.
Melungeonlar, Amerika Birleşik Devletleri'nde başlıca Virginia, Kentucky ve Tennessee eyaletlerinde yaşayan bir toplum. Melungeonların etnik kökeni net olarak bilinmemekle birlikte farklı ırkların karışımıyla meydana gelen bir topluluk olduğunu görüyoruz.
Melungeonlar Amerika'da çok az tanınmış ve hatta çok dışlanmış bir grup Amerikalı. Nereden geldiklerini uzun seneler bilemiyorlar.
İlk tespitlerine göre Melungeon kelimesi Fransızca karışım anlamındaki melange kelimesinden geliyordu. Bu akla yatkın gibi görünüyordu. Ama onların Fransızlarla herhangi bir bağı yoktu. Kendilerine Portekii diyorlardı. Üstelik Melungeon adını ilk olarak Fransızlar değil, İngilizler kullanmıştı. Portekizce'deki denizci anlamına gelen melungo kelimesiyle bağlantısı daha kuvvetli görünüyordu.
I grew up as a young boy knowing and hearing the word Melungeon. And until Brent Kennedy came along, I didn't know what the word meant. And, you know, his research has found out that the word Melungeon means cursed soul. And I immediately thought the people that live here and where they lived, why were they cursed so?
Bu Melungeonların birbirlerine dayanışma içinde olmalarının en büyük sebebi çok uzun süreler kendilerine verdikleri o Melungeon ismi gibi çok uzun süre Amerikan camiasında dışlanmış, hatta acayip görülmüş. Ondan sonra gerçi lisanlarını muhafaza edememişler çünkü çok küçük bir grup. Fakat lisanların içinde de Türkçe kelimeler olmuş. Bazı çok yaşlılar onları da söylemişler. Fakat bunların birbirlerine dayanışma içinde olmalarının en büyük sebebi adeta kendilerini lanetlenmiş bir ırk, bir millet olarak görmüş olmalarıdır. Hatta bu nedenle benim sevgili arkadaşım Brent Kennedy muhtelif kitaplar yazdı bu mevzuda.
İngiliz kaşifler bu insanlara ilk olarak 1600'lü yıllarda Kuzey ve Güney Carolina'da rastlamışlardı.
When we know that there were silk workers in Jamestown, again in the early 1600s, and that part of Virginia, Williamsburg, Jamestown, they're very close to each other. So definitely had Turks here, early 1600s.
We know, for example, that there were Turkish artisans who came into colonial America. There is another mixed ethnic group in South Carolina that was called the Turks.
So these people were remarked upon, and they have been associated with varying descendants. Some people have associated them with Portuguese, some people have associated them with the Ottomans. So they have differing associations, and I think the historic documentation is going to be limited because these people probably looked a lot like the Cherokees and Creeks and Shawnees that they were living around with regard to skin color and things like that. And it wasn't a good thing to have that skin color at that time. It puts you in a different social set. And because of that, many people claimed a link to European ancestry that could call themselves Black Dutch or Portuguese or something of this nature, as opposed to something else. So in the historic records, it may be difficult to find out exactly where these people came from. But without a doubt, you have this Melungeon population in the southeast that comes into the area and ends up settling around the Cumberland Plateau of Tennessee, kind of northeast central Tennessee.
Profesör Brent Kennedy, Melungeonları araştırmaya başlayınca tarihin onların adı gibi karmaşık olduğunu gördü. Ne olursa olsun öncelikle şu Akdenizlilik meselesini çözmesi gerekiyordu. Araştırmalarını o noktaya yoğunlaştırdı. Ancak her defasında düşmeyen hikayeler, doğrulanamayan soy ağaçları ve örtülmüş bir geçiş gördü. Bunun nedeni çok çıktı. Bunlar geçmişlerinde yaşadıkları acılardan kurtulan tarihinin bir parçası olmak istiyorlardı. Bunun için ya tam beyaz kökleri olmalıydı, ya zenci veya kızılı ya da melez. Bu yüzden kendilerine İspanyol veya Portekiz kökenleri atfediyorlardı. Bu konu Amerikan İç Savaşı'ndan sonra ortaya çıkan problemleriyle alakalıydı. Yeni yasalara göre Amerikan toplumu 4 kategoriye ayrılmıştı. Zenci, beyaz, kızılderili ve melez. 1790 yılında Melungeonların yaşadığı yerlerde gözü olan İskoç ve İrlandalılar yürürlükte olan ırk yasasını değiştirerek Melungeonların bu tasnifin dışında kaldığını savunup koyu tenli özgür insanlar diye tanımladılar. Böylece seçme seçilme, mülk edinme, eğitim ve adalete başvurma gibi haklarını ortadan kaldırdılar. Yerleşim yerlerini ellerinden aldılar, onları dağlara sürdüler.
For people who are interested in this, you must know that Melungeonness is not something that people jumped up and down and said, oh, I have Melungeon heritage. This is a very, very recent development where people are starting to search for their history because they were social outcasts. And actually, I don't know if you're going to talk about Plecker and his hit list, the Racial Integrity Act, but he really tried for people not to be able to pass as white, and he came up with a hit list, if you will, of certain surnames, and Mullins was one of those surnames. So these people kind of hid out in the mountains, and, you know, they were not shouting, hey, I have this unknown heritage. So it didn't get passed down.
Etnik köklerdeki belirsizlik ve sürgünler bazı Melungeon ailelerinin kendilerine yeni soy mitleri kurmalarına yol açtı. Bu ailelerden biri de Brent Kennedy'nin ailesiydi. Anlatıldığına göre onlar kendilerine İskoç-İrlanda kökenlerini yakıştırıyorlardı. Bu tür yakıştırmalar 18. yüzyıl Melungeonlarında çok fazla görülüyordu. 1700'lü yıllarda Portekiz asıllı olduklarını söyleyen aileler, 1800'lü yıllarda kara Hollandalı, kara Alman ya da Fransız olduklarını söylüyorlardı. Çünkü anlaşılıyor ki Portekiz kökenleri artık bütünüyle Melungeon kelimesiyle eş anlamlı hale gelmişti. Hatta bazı bölgelerde zamanla Fransız olmak da Melungeon olmakla eş tutuluyordu.
My father's family came from Hancock County, Tennessee, which is one of the best known areas for Melungeons. The population of that area is quite heavily connected with the Melungeons. But in my father's day, this wasn't something that was talked about. My father always referred to his family as being Indian. And it wasn't really until I was about 12 years old that I heard about the Melungeons and found out about my own connection.
Soy mitinin karmaşık hale gelmesi ve her iki ailede de İskoç, İngiliz, İrlandalı, Fransız gibi tam beyaz olgusuna vurgu yapılması, Amerika'daki mevcut yasaların Melungeonları korumaktan uzak olmasıyla ilgiliydi. Her Melungeon, soyunun tam beyaz bir ırktan geldiğini söylemekle kalmıyor, ailesini ve çevresini de buna inandırıyordu. Bir tür bellek kaybı denenmekteydi ve bunda da kısmen başarılı olunmuştu.
I think today there is a lot less stigma attached to a Melungeon ancestry. That's not to say that stigma has disappeared altogether. In fact, in areas where Melungeons live, there might be a bit more stigma than there is for people whose families moved away from this area. But certainly in years past, people hid their Melungeon ancestry because it was something that was considered bad by their neighbors. It was something that people didn't want to talk about. Not everyone was able to deny it because Melungeons come in various colors. It was something that they didn't want to pass on to their children. They didn't want to pass this heritage on to their children. In fact, in Melungeon areas, young people were encouraged to move away, go someplace where no one has ever heard of Melungeons and no one will question that.
Bu kendini gizleme veya başkalaştırmanın dramatik örnekleri de yok değildi. Bazı kadınlar boyunlarından ayak bileklerine kadar siyah elbiseler giyiyorlar, güneşin tenlerinde meydana getireceği esmerliği engellemeye çalışıyorlardı. Böylece göreceli de olsa tam beyaz gibi görünmeye gayret ediyorlardı. Bu davranış Melungeonlar arasında o kadar kanıksanmıştı ki 1950'lerde bile kızlar güneş yanığı esmer tenlere sahip için bu kendini gizli ve başkalaştırmanın dramatik örnekleri de yok değildi. Bazı kızlar boyunlarından ayak bileklerine kadar siyah elbiseler giyiyorlar, güneşin tenlerinde meydana getireceği esmerliği engellemeye çalışıyorlardı. Böylece göreceli de olsa tam beyaz gibi görünmeye gayret ediyorlardı. Bu davranış Melungeonlar arasında o kadar kanıksanmıştı ki 1950'lerde bile kızlar güneş ve esmer tenlere sahip olmamak için kollarını bileklerine kadar kapatmaya devam ediyorlardı. Brent Kennedy'yi şaşıran gerçeklerden biri de Melungeonların Amerikan yerli kabilelerinden Cherokee'lerle olan bağıydı. Araştırmaları esnasında gerek ailesi, gerekse sözlü geleneği muhafaza eden yaşlılar, Cherokee'lerle akraba olduklarını defalarca söylemişlerdi. Fakat bu akrabalığın temellerini açıklayıcı bilgilerden yoksundu. Araştırmaları onu yine aynı noktaya götürdü. 1834 yılında Cherokee'ler ve bazı Melungeonlar yurttaşlık hakları ellerinden alınarak batıdaki topraklara sürülmüşlerdi. Daha ilginci, bu acımasız sürgünün emrini veren kişi, kökenlerinde Melungeon kanı taşıyan Amerika'nın 7. devlet başkanı Andrew Jackson'dı. Melungeonların Cherokee kabilesine girip kaynaşmaları, Melungeonlara özgü olan gümüş işlemelerinin Cherokee aileleri tarafından öğrenilmesine yol açmıştı. Ancak bu kaynaşmada ilk anda açıklayamadığı başka benzerliklerin bulunması dikkatinden kaçmamıştı. Acaba Melungeonlarla Cherokee'lerin tarihin derinliklerinde yatan kan bağları mı vardı?
Probably the tribes that were located around the area where the Melungeons settled probably did. Those would have been the Cherokee, some of the Virginia tribes, other tribes perhaps in the what is now North Carolina area. So they probably had communications with those. I have met Melungeons who have said that they have Indian blood. So I don't doubt that. That's quite likely. Back in the early days, there were many Indian tribes, more so than today, in those areas.
...1800'lü yıllarda Cherokee olmak, Melungeon olmaktan daha iyiydi. Özellikle merkezi hükümetin yurtlarından atılan kabilelere tazminat ödemeye başlaması. Pek çok Melungeon ailesi kökenlerinde Kızılderili kanı taşıdıklarını ısrarla savunmuşlardı. Hatta Melungeonların reisi Cherokee'lerden bir kızla evlenmiş. Ne var ki bu iddialar hiçbir zaman istenilen özgürlüğü getirmemişti.
There they are able to intermix not only with Euro-American peoples, but also with the Cherokees and the Shawnees and probably the Wyandots and Chickasaws and Creeks. There was probably a lot of intermixing.
Bütün bu ön yargılar, dışlanmalar, sürülmeler, haksızlıklar ve aşağılamalar bazı Melungeonların çevresine karşı daha haşin bir tutuma girmesine sebep olmuştu. Dağlara çekilen Melungeon erkekleri zaman zaman kasabalara iniyor, etrafa korku ve dehşet saçıyorlardı. Şüphe yok ki birkaç Melungeon ellerinde tüfeklerle daha önce kovuldukları kasabalara indiklerinde sokaklarda kimsecikler bulunmuyordu. Onların kapıların arkasında tir tir titrediklerinden emin, keyifli ve cesur bir tavırla kasabayı dolaşıp yeniden dağlara gidiyorlardı. Brent Kennedy, aile dolabını karıştırdıkça karşısına çıkan tatsız olayların, kökenlere dair karmaşık ve inandırıcı olmayan söylencelerin kendisini asıl gerçeğe götürmekten uzak olduğunu fark etti. Dinlediği hikayeler, onun Akdeniz anemisi taşımasının nedenlerini açıklamıyor. Bu yüzden kökenlerine dair araştırmalara yeniden döndü. Öncelikle biz kimiz sorusunun peşini bırakmayacaktı. Araştırmalarının sonucunda ortaya çıkan iddia, Melungeonlar tarafından sıklıkla dile getirilen Portekiz kökenli. Ancak canlıların yanında Portekiz kültürüne ait hiçbir güçleri çürütüyor. Üstelik onlar ilk zamanlar Elizabethlizlerdi ve İngilizce taşıyorlar. İsrail'in kabilesinden olmaları ise fanteziden ibaretti. Melungeonlar arasına Yahudiler karışmış olsa dahi binlerce yıl önce Amerika kıyılarına gelinmiş olabileceği mümkün görünmüyordu. Son olarak Melungeonların Kızılderili, beyaz ve kaçak kölelerin karışmasından meydana geldikleri tezine gelince. Melungeonlarda ilk bakışta Afrika ve Kızılderili etkisi görülebiliyor. Ancak bu Kur'an'da göz ardı edilen husus, Melungeonların 1750'lerde oldukça dağınık halde bulunduğu, bilinen en eski Melungeonların Kızılderili değil, Akdeniz fiziğine sahip oldu.
As I shared with you earlier,
Y'all know I hate to ignore my chat. Peace to my chat. Peace to my chat. So, how y'all feeling about this? Bro said this is a good bill, and I'm glad you're enjoying it. So you guys getting some of this information tying into, when we start tying things in together, we can see the maze that has been constructed around our mind and creating blockages for the portals of information to flow through freely. They will only flow through freely because energy moves in that cycle of perfect energy, perfect sequency, right? So if we're moving in a perfect energy, if our knowledge is being able to be pulled in and obtained in perfect sequence, with it being a truth in the knowledge, you're able to see it. There's no confusion. You're not wondering. You're not unclarified in your mind. Your brain has picked up on the truth. It knows what to decipher and what to pick and choose. Anything that you have been looking at over the last 2 months that we have been putting together in dissemination and breaking down all of these excavations and so on and so forth, you can put the timelines together. I have shown you directly. What you need to do is make sure that you are taking notes. I'm not trying to act like a teacher. All I'm doing is showing you the things that I know to bring it to your attention. you can possibly bring something else to my attention. As I keep saying to y'all, it may seem like I know a lot of this stuff, but this is just information that I know and I coincided. So I don't know a lot of the history. I don't know a lot of the names per se, some of these things. So I appreciate the help. My chat is everything. Y'all always coming through, showing me some other information, bringing more light and clarity to it, putting a flashlight on it. I love y'all, everything. So we're going to continue with this. Just wanted to shout you guys out real quick. Make sure you know I see you. Brown is a Melungeon name. Melungeon, if I'm saying that right, bro. Not sure. And as I said, it's lots of mixing and brewing. I keep telling you guys, these are the witches' brews of these black seeds in the land. They take a land, they consume it, you know, they take over it, then they come back, they conquer it. They have their children set there, and they are planted there because they have roots there now, because they have what? A bloodline, supposedly. Not that they don't, but they have been interceded in that bloodline. It's not a pure bloodline of that original place or that land. It is of a mixed breed that has come and dropped a seed to plant in the garden to make it grow. If you guys can get that. I'm not going to go into too much detail because y'all know I rant. The Monacan Indians. Interesting, sis. Yeah, we're going to get into a lot of stuff coming up. So just keep tuned. You guys know.
I came to find something. Another thing that again Kismet here too, that was just an affirmation of this hair. I was at my dentist, and he's like, "Oh, what are you doing now, April?" Because I do a lot of different things. I told him about this Melungeon research, and he goes, "Where people like come from?" And I said, "Well, Turkey, or you know, the Egyptians, some renegade Greeks, because that would have been part of the Ottoman Empire." And he said, "Let me see if you have the tubercle of Carabelli." Now, for those of you that didn't go to dental school, which I didn't know either, it's a certain way that one of the back molars is shaped, and that's a genetic marker for people that come from the Mediterranean. And I said, "Well, you know, I probably have some Indian heritage." So I was wondering, you know, do they have that? And he said, "No, this would be from the Mediterranean."
Yeniden Akdeniz tarihine dönüp İspanyol, Portekiz ve Mağripli köklere doğru araştırmalarını derinleştirdi. İspanya 111'den 1492 yılına kadar Müslümanların dünya keşifler çağını yaşamaya başladığı sırada İspanya yeniden fetih hareketiyle Müslümanları ve Yahudileri bütün İspanya'dan çıkarmışlar. Hızlı bir şekilde İskralı 1. Fransa'nın emriyle kurulan Engizisyon mahkemeleri binlerce kişiyi gizli Müslüman ve Yahudi oldukları gerekçesiyle yargılamış, idam veya sürgün etmişti. Aynı uygulama daha katı şekliyle Portekiz'de de yürütülmüştü. Bu durumda İspanya ve Portekiz'den sürülen esmer insanlar yeni keşfedilmiş olan Kanarya Adaları'na sürülmüşlerdi. Ancak bunların büyük bölümü Kuzey Afrika'ya sığınmışlar, bölgede hakimiyet kurmuş olan katılmışlardı. 17. yüzyılda Akdeniz'de faaliyet gösteren Türk gemilerinde İspanya ve Portekiz'den intikam almak isteyen yüzlerce mağripli bulunuyordu ve sürekli deydiler ve aldıkları esirlerle doluydu. Bu bilgiler Güney Amerika'daki Müslüman Melungeonların kökenlerini izah edebilirdi. Ancak Kuzey Amerika aynı şeyleri söylemek mümkün görünmüyor. Profesör Brand Kennedy tarihe dönüp Amerika'nın gelişme sürecini incelemeye başlayınca ilginç bir ayrıntıya göz. Yeni kıtanın keşfinden sonra ilk İngiliz kolonicileri taşıyan gemi 1607'de gelmişti. 1627'de ise ikinci grup. Fakat bunlardan bir süre önce başka bir kıtaya ayak bastığına dair izler vardı. Bunların kimler olduğunu, niçin geldiklerini öğrenmek, bilmecenin en önemli düğümünü açmak demekti. Brand Kennedy bu defa çalışmalarını bunlar üzerine yoğunlaştırdı. Elde ettiği bulgularla Melungeonların Akdeniz'le bağlantısı geniş ölçüde ortaya çıkmaya başladı.
nereden geldiklerini bilmiyorlar fakat bir kısmı Portekiz diyor, bir kısmı İspanyol diyor falan. Ta ki Brand Kennedy ki kendisi Georgetown Üniversitesi'nin rektör yardımcısıydı. Başına gelen çok enteresan hastalıklar, bu Behçet sindrom dediğimiz sadece Türklerin hastalığı, Türk ve Akdeniz insanlarının hastalığı, bu Akdeniz kansızlığı, telasemiye falan, bütün bu hastalıkları üzerinde bulunduğu zaman görüldüğü için kendisini merakla demiş ki sen demiş mutlaka ya bir Türksün demiş veya da oralardan bir hastalık demiş, bu kadar bir şekilde olamaz demiş.
Yüzyılda Akdeniz'in iki önemli gücü Osmanlılar ve İspanyollardı. Mağrip denilen bütün Kuzey Afrika, Lübnan, Filistin ve Suriye kıyılarını kapsayan Doğu Akdeniz'le Anadolu, Ege ve Adriyatik kıyıları bütünüyle Osmanlı elinde. Batı Akdeniz ise İspanyolların denetimindeydi. Bu iki büyük güç Kıbrıs'ın Osmanlıların eline geçmesi üzerine 1571 yılında İnebahtı'da karşı karşıya geldiler. İspanyolların da içinde bulunduğu Haçlı donanması Osmanlı donanmasına ağır bir darbe vurdu.
Bildiğimiz bir şey var ki İnebahtı'nda, Lepanto Harbi'nde, hatta Harbi'nde güzel bir şeysi vardır. Kıbrıs'ı İnebahtı'nı kaybediyor. Haçlılar çok büyük bir şey yapıyorlar, bir tezahürde bulunuyorlar. Çok biz Osmanlı'yı yendik diye. O sırada Osmanlı'nın da söylediği, padişahın söylediği, biz Kıbrıs'ı aldık, sizin kolunuzu kestik ama siz İnebahtı'da bizi yendiniz, bizi sadece tıraş ettiniz. Bir sene sonra biz daha da büyük donanmayla karşınıza çıkacağız diye bir tehdit yapmıştır ve yapmıştır da. Hakikaten bir sene sonra muhteşem bir donanmayla çıkmıştır.
O savaşta Osmanlılar sadece donanma kaybetmediler. 5000'e yakın Osmanlı Levent'i de Haçlılara esir düştü. İspanyolların ele geçirdiği esirleri kolonilerine taşıdığı, bir kısmını ise gemilerinde forsu olarak çalıştırdığı anlaşılıyor. Buna dair en belirgin kanıt, meşhur İngiliz denizci Kaptan Drake'e ait.
In 1585, Sir, Captain Ralph Lane is left here as governor of a 108-man colony. After about a year, they've totally messed up everything they've done with the Native Americans. They've ruined the relationship. As such, with Sir Francis Drake coming up from the south, he offers them a passage home. To do this, he does have to open some spaces in his ships. Amongst them were several galley slaves from Spanish ships he captured, which were peopled by Ottoman Empire personnel. Also, several Native Americans from Mexico, Peru, and African slaves. What happened to these people? That's the source of many conjectures. Basically, about late June, Drake offers Lane the trip home, goes away for 3 days, comes back, he has a lot of space. Doesn't have as many servants and slaves. What happened to them? Did they were dropped off at Ocracoke or some of the other islands to be lost? Or did he just tie them to rocks and sink them at sea? We don't know. The only good news is for the Turkish prisoners, they were reserved. They were not going to be lost because the English were attempting to make a personal outreach to the Ottoman Empire and try to create an alliance. And the use of these Turkish prisoners would do well to bring the English into the good stead of the Ottomans.
Osmanlılarla İngilizler arasında aynı yıllarda 200 Türk forsanın salıverilmesi yolunda görüşmeler yapıldığına göre Kaptan Drake'in Amerika kıyılarına terk ettiği esirlerin Osmanlı vatandaşı olduğu kesinleşiyor.
Bu belgeler önemli yalnız. Yani Türklerin Ronaki adasına kadar gidip orada bir kısmının bırakılıp bir kısmının İngiltere'ye gelmesi ve İngiltere Kraliçesi Elizabeth tarafından Osmanlı Hanedanı'na gönderilmesine dair belgelerin hepsi bunlar elle tutulur belgeler ve dolayısıyla bunlar bence daha geniş yapılacak bir araştırmaya baz teşkil edilecek en kuvvetli, en güçlü bilgiler, belgeler.
Peki aynı şekilde İspanyollar ve Portekizler de ellerindeki Osmanlı esirlerini Amerika kıyılarına terk etmiş olamazlar mıydı? Bu da kabul edilebilir
I wonder.
bulundu ve araştırmalarda buna dair pek çok belgeye ulaşılabiliyordu. Amerika kıtasının bu gönülsüz misafirleri yeni göçmen tesiriyle Hristiyanlığa geçmişlerdi. Yine de içlerinden bazıları güney yönüne dönerek anlamını ve nedenini bilmeden bazı hareketler yapıyorlardı. Şüphe yok ki İslamiyet'e dair pek çok ritüelin izleriydi bunlar. Böylece Brent Kennedy, bilmecenin en önemli boşluğunu doldurmuş oldu. Kökenlerinin Akdeniz bağlantısı artık bütünüyle ispatlanmış sayılırdı.
One of the beliefs of Melungeon historians is that the people who were the original Melungeons were Muslim. And as such, they point to that Muslims pray to the east or pray towards Mecca. And as such, these Melungeons in their early religious rituals would actually pray on their knees towards the east and the rising sun.
Brett Kennedy konuşmalarımızın sırasında bizim dedi büyüklerimiz, atalarımız belli bir yöne güneye dönerlerdi. İşte kültür fizik yaparmış gibi yatar kalkarlardı. Ben de ona camiye getirdim. O da dedi ki işte böyle bir şey yapıyorlar dedi. Yani kendilerinin, ailelerinin daha önceki yıllarda Türk olduğunu ve hatta Müslüman olduğunu iddia etti.
Muzdarip kaldığı Akdeniz anemisi hastalığının da hikayesini tamamlamak üzereydi. İngiliz ve İrlanda köklerinin bütünüyle hayal ürünü olduğunu kesin olarak anlamıştı. Ancak merakını bütünüyle bastırmış sayılmazdı. Akdenizli ama hangi Akdenizli? Türk, Bask, Kızılderili, İberyalı, Berberi gen havuzundan çıkmış olmak bazen Portekizli, bazen İspanyol veya Berberi gibi bir yanılsama meydana getiriyordu. Bu karışıklığı çözmenin yollarından biri de antropolojik özelliklere bakmaktan geçiyordu.
Some of the academic research that had been done by a cultural geographer, and his name was Edward Price, and he kind of dismissed the fact that one specific common denominator in the Melungeons was that they all erected these small little houses over the grave. These are grave houses that were documented by Donald Ball in 1977. He didn't connect it to any specific Ottoman or other cultural root. He said, if anything, that it might have sprung from an English lich gate or a Scottish house tomb. People don't give up their burial habits unless they're conquered, and even then it's one of the last things you give up. And my theory is that when Turks came to the States, they were taken in by Native Americans, and then they blended with those various tribes, and they wanted to, have a part of them with the Native American culture, and they did so by incorporating the Ottoman design in their fencing with the Melungeons. I did find a very well documented one in 1830, Mount Comfort Cemetery. I actually took this photograph with me when I went to Turkey in 2001. And this is a picture of an Ottoman tomb from Tira, Turkey. And as you can see, it very much mimics the same form and shape of that fence design.
Diğer yandan gündelik hayata dair gözlemler ilgili. bulgur yemeği Amerika tarafından hiç bilinmiyordu. Aynı şekilde Avrupalılara da özgü değil. Amerikan halkı tarafından pek tercih edilmeyen koyun etini daha çok tüketiyorlardı. Nazar değmesine inanıyorlardı. Hayır anlamında kullanılan sesi.
Benzer kültürel geçmişlerimiz var. Bugün nasıl örneğin çok argo bir şekilde hayır diyorken ve yapıyorken onlar da öyle diyor. Örneğin bazı şeyler kalmış ve gelişmiş.
It's interesting that the turban really only shows up around the southeast. You get these other kinds of hats all across northeastern America, but you seem to have that turban focused in those areas where you have that Melungeon population. So that's an interesting connection to pursue.
Kahveyi Türkler gibi içiyorlar, ters kapatıp kahve falı bakıyorlardı. Misafirperverdiler. Melungeon kadınlarından Louisa Hall Nash misafirperverliğiyle meşhurdu.
And my grandmother, now it would have been through my grandfather, the Mullins, but my grandmother used to like read tea leaves. So, no, not tea leaves, coffee grounds. Coffee grounds. So when I went to Turkey and I saw people were like reading Turkish coffee, I said, wow, this is so wild. And after the first couple times people started reading my cup, I said, I think I can do that. And so, as I told you, when you call me, I said, I'll give you some Turkish coffee and I'll read your cup.
Brent Kennedy'nin hemen gözüne çarpan bu özellikler, Türklerin özellikleriyle neredeyse aynı. Bu heyecan keşfini tamamlamak için geriye bir tek şey kalmıştı. DNA testi yaptırmak.
Y kromozomu biliyorsunuz 400-500 jenerasyon geçse bile Y kromozomu üzerinde kalıntılar var. Yani geçiyor. Babadan oğula biliyorsunuz erkeklerde taşınıyor Y kromozom. Dolayısıyla Y kromozom tabii yani Kızılderili Türkler arasında değil de Y kromozom jenerasyonlar arasındaki benzerliği taşıyan bir kromozom olarak düşünmek lazım. Yani dolayısıyla biz o kültürel şeyleri de özellikleri de buradan çıkartabiliriz. Sadece Kızılderili Türkler arasında değil, diğer kavimlerde de aynı şeyi düşünebiliriz. Ama diğer taraftan da biraz önce söylediğim gibi mitokondri içerisinde X kromozomu yani annenin taşıdığı mitokondrideki DNA da kalıtımsal özellikleri taşıyan önemli bir hücre oluyor. Yani anneden de özellikler geçiyor. Sadece Y'den değil, anneden de geçiyor.
Brent Kennedy ve Melungeon kökenli bazı ailelerin yaptırdığı DNA testlerinin sonuçları beklendiği gibiydi. Kendilerinde Osmanlı hakimliği kalan Anadolu, Azerbaycan, Türkmenistan, Bosna, Kuzey Irak, İsrail, Yunanistan, Ermenistan, Lübnan, Filistin, Doğu Afrika ve Arabistan'a kadar uzanan sahada yaşayan insanların genleriyle benzerlikler bulunuyordu.
Well, since I had a DNA test myself, I have to agree with those results because my DNA test showed that on my father's side that I am about 25% Turkish.
Brent Kennedy kendisine acı veren Akdeniz anemisi hastalığının neden kurulunda kökenlerini keşfetmenin mutluluğuna ulaşmıştı. Yaşlı tarih aslında hiçbir unutmamıştı. Sadece keşfedilmeyi beklemişti. Oysa yüzyıllarca yalnızca ten renklerinden horlanan, sürgün edilen ve temel insani haklarından bile mahrum bir toplum dirilişi çoktan hak etmişti. Bugün çoğunlukla Amerika'nın Carolina, Florida, Kentucky, Virginia ve Tennessee yörelerinde ve nüfusu 4 milyonu bulduğu tahmin edilen Melungeonların kökenleri Akdeniz dünyasının en büyük imparatorluğunu kuran Osmanlılara kadar uzanıyordu. Şimdi içlerinden çıkan ama kimliklerini gizlemiş olan büyük şahsiyetlerle övünebilirlerdi. Onların Anadolu'yla bağlarını yeniden kurma çalışmaları ise İzmir'in Çeşme ilçesinde yankı bulmuş, Çeşme ve Bayız ilçeleri kardeş kent olmuşlar. Bu kardeşlik, yüzyıllar önce kaybedilen akrabaların bulunması anlamını taşıyor.
Biz 1996 yılında kardeş şehir olduk. Ondan sonra da 1997'de bunların yaptığı ilk genel kurula biz davetlendik. Bizi bir nevi devletimiz yolladı oraya. Yani Turizm Bakanlığı'nın desteğiyle biz oraya gittik. Ondan sonra da kardeş şehir ünvanı bizim için çok çok iyi oldu.
Merhaba. Hoş geldiniz. Wise became a sister city with Çeşme, Turkey, because of the work that Brent Kennedy was doing with the research with the Melungeon people, and Brent being a native of the town of Wise, I talked to him a lot. I was up to date with a lot of his research and what he was doing, and we discussed that a lot with Brent. And Brent thought, and we had a lunch one day, and Brent thought it would be a good deal and ran the deal by me as to would the town of Wise be interested in a sister city relationship with Çeşme, Turkey? And I said yes. And actually, just a town in Turkey. And Brent did some research and suggested that we use Çeşme.
Çeşme'nin tarihte eskiden denizcilerin uğrak yaptığı ve ilk Osmanlı Türk donanmasının 1080'ler burada olduğu için tarihi bir önemi taşımaktadır. Jacobi ismindeki ilk Türk denizcisi 1080-1079 tarihlerinde ilk Osmanlı Türk donanmasını burada kurdu.
Melungeonların kökleriyle yeniden buluşma gayretleri, Melungeon toplumuyla Türk toplumu arasında oluşan köprüyü giderek daha da sağlamlaştırıyordu. Köklerinden binlerce kilometre uzakta yaşanan türlü zorluklara rağmen yaşama yeniden tutunan Melungeonlar, Türkiye gündemini yakından takip ederek Türk-Melungeon dostluğunu giderek daha da sağlamlaştırıyorlardı.
1990'ların başında yapılan genetik çalışma Türk-Melungeon yakınlığını ve Melungeonların atalarının arasında Türklerin de yer almakta olduğunu ortaya koyuyor. Bu yakınlığı gösteriyor. Böylelikle Türk toplumuyla Melungeon toplumu arasında bir dostluk başlamıştır. Bu çerçevede Melungeonlar Türk-Amerikan Asamblesi'nin doğal bir üyesidir. Ayrıca Dünya Türk Kurultayı'na katılım sağlamaktadırlar. Kanaat önderlerinin yaptıkları ziyaretler sonucunda Melungeonların ağırlıklı olarak yaşadığı eyaletinin Wise şehri ile Çeşme kentimiz kardeş şehir olarak ilan edilmişlerdir. Diğer taraftan Virginia Üniversitesi ve İstanbul Üniversitesi kardeş üniversite olarak işbirliği protokolü imzalamışlardır. Bunun yine Üniversitesi ile Dumlupınar Üniversitesi'nin kardeş üniversite olduklarını görüyoruz. 1999 afeti, deprem sonucunda Melungeonlar kimsesiz kalan Türk çocuklarına evlat edinmek istediklerini, kapılarını Türk çocuklarına açmak istediklerini özellikle belirtmişler. Bu konuda yapmış ve duyarlılık göstermişlerdir. Dolayısıyla Melungeon toplumunun Türkiye'ni takip etmekte olduklarını, büyük bir ilgi duymaya başladıklarını görmekteyiz.
Türk-Amerikan Dernekleri Kurulu olarak tüm Amerika'daki Türkleri Washington DC'de, başkentte ediyoruz. Aşağı yukarı 500 bin sayıyoruz ve Azerilerle beraber 600 bine kadar çıkabilir. Ve çok yakın zamana kadar tarihimizi sadece bir 100 senelik olarak biliyorduk. Birinci Dünya Savaşı'nın zamanlarında, sonrasında gelen Türkler, illerde mühendis ve doktor olarak Amerika'ya gelen Türkler, benim annem Böyle biliyorduk. Ondan sonra çok yakın zamanda can tarihimizi öğrendik. Ve o da 1500'lerin sonundaki deniz savaşlarında esir alınan Osmanlıların adalı ve ondan sonra Güneydoğu Amerika'ya yerleştirilmesi ve bu kişiler herhangi bir şekilde Avrupa'dan gelen kolonistler tarafından kabul edilmemesi ve ama Kızılderililer tarafından kabul edilmesi, onların tarafından kucak açılması, onların tarafından korunması ve onlarla beraber aile kurmaları dikkatimizi çok çekti. Bu arada kalmış bu millet Melungeonlar ya sahip çıktı Kızılderililer ve bu halka biz daha yeni kavuşuyoruz. Bu birkaç açıdan çok önemli. Birincisi Melungeonlar bize derin bir tarih veriyor. Kolonistler kadar eskiyiz. Ve ikincisi Amerika'nın farklılıklar dünyası toplumu, değişik etnik gruplar, değişik dinler hep beraber yaşayabileceğimiz bir yerde güçlü Türk varlığını ve güçlü bir Osmanlı geleneğini teşkil edebilen bir toplum oluyor. Öğreniyoruz. Onlar da kendi tarihlerini öğrenmek için çabalıyorlar. Biz de kendi tarihimizi öğrenmek için çabalıyoruz. Ve beraber olursa çok güzel şeyler öğreneceğimizi düşünüyoruz. Çok güzel bir kültür paylaşacağımızı düşünüyoruz. Wise semtinde, şehrinde bir Türk Melungeon olabilir. Yerellerimiz Wise'deki yerel kuruluşlarla beraber bu festivali yapabilir. Hem Melungeon kültürünü öğrenin, kültürünü ve tarihini. Ve bunun içinde bir sürü güzel şeyler var. Folklor, el sanatları, müzik.
We don't got to. I thought it was important. I don't know if you already were aware of all this information, Mr. Jackson, Chuck Jackson. Why would we listen to it? So that we know what's true and what's a lie. We can disseminate the lies from the truth. It helps us to break down portals of lies in history. We know certain things, and then as we see certain things, we can tie in timelines and disseminate the truth. And it shows and proves the reality of actually what I have been saying. So for me, we're watching it, for the people that maybe because you haven't really been around, we've been disseminating the lies. So everything that I've been showing you guys over the past 2 months has been breaking down a timeline of things and kind of showing you how things fit. You got to put it together the best way that you can. I'm showing you facts, information. I'm putting it together in a certain way that you can actually see the truth. Some things may seem very random. Some things may be very like, oh, okay, what's this about? Just take the meat and spit out the bone. That's like my favorite thing to do. Take what part's important, which is the fact of what you're being showed and the information that it details and showing you things that you may not have known before. A lot of people have not even heard of this particular so-called race of people, which is a mixed, as someone said, mixed mutt, just like a dog that's been mixed with different, it's the same thing. I keep telling you about these bastardized children, these black seeded children that are being conquered in our lands. They come in and plant the seed, it starts to grow and flourish, and it starts to be more filled with that, and then now it's consumed with that, and then the original a person of the land has been whited out, and they have no heritage belonging to that land, no pure bloodline that belongs to that land. So these things are very, very important to get. Now, we did watch a good bit of this video. If you guys, I do have some other stuff I want to go over with you guys. We had about an hour and 20 minutes. I don't want to keep it too long. So I do want to do a little bit of reading on something as well. So if you guys want to get into the reading or watch a little bit more of this, put a 1 in the chat if you want to get into the reading. Put a 1 in the chat if you want to get into the reading. Grandest brother, great day to you. And yes, they have no history. You know how they keep saying they're learning, they're seeking, they're finding, they're so freaking confused. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have a life of their own. They don't have any history, no ancestry. They can't trace roots because their roots go back to 3 or 4 different places. Like, we don't have that problem. We know our roots. We know where we come from. We are from here. We are part of this entire planetary system. You know, so with us being a part of this entire system, we are the ones that actually are the royalty into this land, which is by Black Seed and Energy, so on and so forth. Bro said, let's get into the book. So that's what we're going to do. Yeah, we're about to get into the book then. Let's stop sharing this. So what we're doing, you know, we have to get this information and get things in our mind that will clarify for us and clear up things. So let's see. Where is it? That's not it. All right, here it is. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. All right. Yes, they are energy suckers, vampire energy, definitely consuming, you know, but we're not going to let that consume us because we're more powerful today. We have the best energy, you know, so nobody can, like, make us, you know. Okay, we're going to read a little bit out of this book. This is an ebook. It is The Federal Indian Relations in 1774. I was going to take you guys back to the, maybe I should have went to this instead. Let's see. I can't give you guys a choice. Let me see. Where is it? Where did I put it down? Hold on a minute. Because both of these disseminate freaking lies. Yeah, I think the government people, this is that invasion we were talking about the other day. No, we'll stick with this for now and read just a little bit of this page. It says the collapse of the imperial control, the importance of the Indian problem, the tribes with whom the government dealt, the establishment of imperial control, matter of necessity. The proclamation of 1763 was a temporary expedition. The excellent but expensive plan of 1764 establishment of an Indian boundary, which was to be maintained by the individual colonies. The imperial land policy not always consistent. The Indian Department tries to prevent illegal land purchases in the South, encroachments on the tribal lands in the North, Lord Drummore's War, a speculator's war. The Indian Department meets with difficulties in trying to enforce trade regulations in the South. The attempt to establish an unfair trade policy in the North does not exceed. The Quebec Act, an attempt to place Northern Indian trade under governmental control, the collapse of the British control of the Indian affairs in the South. So all this came about with the lack of their control that they had. The end of the imperial rule in the North. The New York colony proposes a policy of unified control of the Indian affairs. The Pennsylvania-Virginia boundary dispute. The Virginia takes steps to protect the western frontier. Establishments of the Continental Indian Departments and preliminary negotiations with the tribes. The Indians as a factor of the Revolutionary War. The problem of Indian participation in the war. Why the Americans failed to secure the Indians as allies, congressional machinery for managing the Indian affairs, the treaties with the Six Nations, the British were able to maintain many agents among the tribes. The British were able to maintain many agents among the tribes. We went over this the other day, guys. You guys remember we talked about it. We show how they actually traded on each other when they came over, when they came and traded on each other. What they did would sway them. Now, to have someone else. So now, at that time, the other tribe decided that the Cherokee Nation, they said, hey, we need some backup here. We can't handle them on our own. Damn, our own people coming against us, this, and that. That's the same thing the Moors did to them, right? They have a certain tactic that they like to use, manipulation of the minds of the people. You know, they act like they're coming there to help you. They're there for you. They have their best intentions in mind. All you have to do is follow what my intentions are, and then you're going to have it better off. But hey, I'm good right now. Shit, our people don't know how to say that enough's enough sometimes, I guess. You know, they should just told them, no, we're good. So either way, they turn around and they had to get some help. They enlisted the help from these French, because if they didn't bring the French in, they would have probably all been terminated immediately. So at least with the help of the French, they had some type of resistance against the Cherokee nations with the, I forgot which one of the areas that they were fighting against, but you guys pretty much should know. Or somebody could put in the chat if someone does know. But when they were fighting, I can't remember, and I don't want to go back to it. But either way, when they were fighting with them with the Cherokee Nation, and with the Cherokee Nation getting the French to help them, as you guys remember, they had to come against them. So this is why they were bringing these different people into the areas, into the tribes, because they were needing backup with each other. You know, they trading on each other, our own people. Don't this happen now? Don't we see it all the time? Our people would trade on each other for a foreigner at any time. As soon as the foreigner says, oh, you know, hey, I'm being so kind, I'm being so this or that, and I'm going to help you, and I'm going to this, I'm going to that, offering you something, giving you something free. People want to run for something free. Oh, look, oh, they're helping me. This is going to be a come up for me, or whatever the case may be. As soon as they get that, what's going to happen? They're going to stab you right in your damn back. They could care less about you. It's a benefit for them. You may think that they're giving you and they're coming at a loss for something, but no, it doesn't work like that. Generally, there's some type of trade. This is how they took advantage of our own people. Our own people were willing to trade against each other because they wanted to make sure that they were able to get these people to help them. So they told them, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to make it easy for y'all to trade. Y'all will be able to just ride across the road and this and that. We're going to bring the cement and this and that. What all this other nonsense they want to do. Brick roads, or, you know, whatever they did. I don't know if that was part of that follow the yellow brick road thing or what. But when it comes to that, when they came and telling them they were going to do this and that, they were trading different things. If you guys remember, I don't remember the exact bounty, but there were certain things that they were trading, certain stocks, certain things as far as like the grains, the herbs, so on and so forth. So when they were trading all these different things, as they traded these things, they thought they had a friend. They had a friend indeed, not knowing that they were a friend that they did not need. So once they started the conflict between the tribes, now they have someone to be opposing, and they can try to assume the land, which they did. Then they started mixing and mingling, and of course, again, implanting their seed here within the ionic womb of the melanated being. And that was kind of what was going on, okay? All right, so let's get back to the rest of this. Let me start back here again. So treaties with the Six Nations, the British were able to maintain many agents among the tribes, activities on the New York frontier in 1775, Fort Pitt frontier in 1776 to 77. Congress takes charge of the Fort Pitt frontier in 1777, the British Indian Department in the South. It was the British Indians, the British Indian Department in the South. The rivalry of the British agents, the British Indians were the British agents. The British Indians were the British agents in the North. The rivalry of the British and the Americans for the support of the Six Nations, the Burgoyne expedition, the St. Leger expedition, the Fort Pitt frontier in 1777 to 1779, the Clark expedition, and in episode in the struggle for the possession of the Western land, the controversy of the Virginia with the land companies, Sullivan expedition, the New York frontier of 1780, the British attack on St. Louis, the New York frontier of 1781, the Fort Pitt frontier of 1781, the Indians as auxiliaries during the war. The Indians as auxiliaries during the war. Does this sound like so absurd? Yeah, what's going on with the chat? David Bell, peace, brother. Grandest to you. Peace to you. It says, see the more, Chuck says, see the Moors was using crazy semantics. The Moors were using semantics. This whole thing happened because of tribe trading. Yes, yes, yes. See, do you see how many this is like, what is this? This is like the fourth document that we've proven this. This is like the fourth document. If you guys have to go back, I want to go and try to figure out which one, but a couple of the videos when it says the book or American history, you may see that we're reading the book. These books, they pretty much say the same thing. That's kind of what happened. So they would use our own people against us. They would trade on each other, just like they're doing now. They're turning our own people against us, just like Aboriginal power has been doing over the last couple of weeks with the Africans, saying the Africans, look how they come against us. You know, we welcome them here. We're doing things and, you know, doing all this stuff. And then look what happened. They keep trading on us. They will turn against their own people because they want to fit in with these people. And you see what these people did. What did we just see with these people? They turned around and they did everything. The Melungeon people, they went and they actually denied their own parts of their ancestry, their race. They didn't want to claim any of the black. They didn't want to claim any of the Indian, you know, whatever. They indigenous, Native American, whatever parts they were, because they were mixed of like 3 or 4 different breeds. But they didn't want to claim that. They wanted to be labeled white. They had to be labeled white because they felt they wanted that status. It was very much so important for them to have that status versus trying to figure out their ancestry or having some type of history of their own. Right? Yes, mine too, bro. I'll be finding so much information just because I study. I love to research, not only study. It's very good to research. A1 be popping out. I don't know what you mean by A1 be popping out, bro. I'm sorry. But yeah, I like to study. When you study, you're able to study on a particular subject or a topic, something that you're, you know, looking at. This thing I want to understand, this thing I want to dive into, this thing I really want to get the gist of it from the rooter to the tutor. When it comes to researching things, there's a different technique. You're looking at things, and then there's an in-depthitude to the things that are beyond that, beyond the surface of the one thing. You may find something that's going to stand out. Your spirit will tell you, hey, look at this, check this out. You'll go into a whole nother area based off of one thing in this one particular area. So it's important to actually do a lot of research so that you can discern the difference and actually pull out more information based off of the way that you're looking at it and viewing it, not just checking it out on the surface. That's very important. Yes, chaos and confusion. Definitely, that would like throw you off. The African words in the car. Exactly. You trading on us for somebody else that ain't even your own color. Shit. That's we expect it from them. From these people that they tell me, oh, y'all came from them. Oh, y'all came from over here. Y'all family. Y'all from these people. Damn, y'all the least ones we'd expect to be doing this. Man, I'll tell you that. Let's read this. The problems of peace, negotiations with the Northern Indians. Of course, they weren't having that. They didn't want to go along with this crap. None of them did. It was the chiefs or certain people that were the ones that were getting these dowries and things, and certain things they were promised to them, not knowing that they were going to get stabbed right in their back after they helped them out. You know, how stupid are these people? The problem, okay, with this is that the Indians not mentioned in the peace treaty in 1783. So there were many, many Indians that were not mentioned in the peace treaty, okay? The failure of Douglas' mission, General Schuyler's preliminary negotiations with the Six Nations. General Schuyler and the Washington advised the Congress with with regard to Indian affairs. The Congress proposes to secure revenue from the Western lands. The land ordinances of 1785. Did you hear this? Check this out. The Congress proposes to secure revenue from the Western land. How do you propose to come to a land and propose to secure your revenue from the parts of this land? Do you see how our people actually just fell for anything? The land ordinances of 1785, the ordinances of 1786 for regulating Indian affairs, the Treaty of Fort Stanwix clashed with the state of New York. The Fort McIntosh Treaty not accepting to the Indians, Captain Doherty's points out the weaknesses of the federal Indian policy, the weaknesses of the federal Indian policies they put in place that would actually be fundamentally effective for them, right? Fundamentally creating some type of way for them to have a better way, right? Something that's going to benefit them. Something that's going to take us out of the way, but it's definitely going to be better for them. They're going to have a gain from it. They're going to be doing things, you know, to help themselves, so on and so forth, right? Freaking evil behinds. Okay. It says that the policy in the treaty at Fort Feeney, Indians were not willing to give its provisions. The Indians were not willing to accept its provisions. They weren't willing to accept the provisions of these people. You're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to restrict me on my land. You're not going to tell us what we need to do to follow your guidelines. They stood against that. They didn't want to hear any of that. So the federal government tries to prevent intrusion on Indian land. They said they tried to prevent intrusion on Indian land. How do you do that? You get on your boat and go right back to your swamp-ass land, but they didn't do that. The federal government tries to prevent the intrusion on the Indian land. The British policy of watchful waiting, waiting for them to tire out, waiting for them to not be on guard, right? The Western Indians' attempt of unified policy. They attempted to form some type of unified policy. The federal government prepares for a policy of frontier defense. The Northwest Ordinances, establishments of the new government in the Northwest Territory, the final federation treaties with the Northern and the Western Indians. The Indian problem in the North and the West is left unsettled because of the treaties. They still didn't get anything settled. More damn confusion. More confusion, more ways to manipulate these people and find ways of how can we make the best way, not to make you guys fair or get what should be due to you. And at least we both benefit, but we're going to take over. We want it all. The greed. All right. What is this? Whiting is Coward says, when would Ab really realize that the Native Americans held blacks in slavery and your grandma, Mammy, who only remembers being Cherokee, has adopted the identity of her enslaver? Okay, let's get back to it. The problem of peace negotiations and Southern Indians, right? The report of the Committee of Indian Affairs in the South proposal for a Southern Confederacy to deal with the Indians, the state negotiations with the tribe. Conditions in the South hastened the federal action. The federal commissions failed to secure a treaty with the Creeks. They failed to secure a treaty with the Creeks. The Spanish influence on the Southern Indian affairs, Georgia opposes the federal policy. Now, if you guys are looking at this timeline, and then we're looking at the Melungeon people when these were starting to be a created race around that time. This is around the same time. So they're on the other side of these mountains at this time, and they're doing this everywhere. Check this out. The federal commissions failed to secure a treaty with the Creeks. The Spanish influence on Southern Indian affairs, Georgia opposes the federal policy. The treaty with the Cherokee, North Carolina, opposes the treaty. The treaties with the Choctaws, that's who it was, the Choctaws, and the Cherokees, the Choctaws and the Chickasaws, the Georgia attempts to secure more land from the Creeks. As you guys remember, this is what we read the other day in the book that went more in detail. The book told us that the Choctaws, they had them come and they were helping them. They made or forced the Chickasaws to go along with this treaty. Unfortunately, they didn't want to. After falling in the war, they had the help of the French, but it didn't do them too much good. Then they both came against the Creeks to come bombard them. Okay. It says that the state of Franklin makes unlawful seizures of Cherokee land. James White, the newly elected federal superintendent of Indian Affairs. Hold on one second, guys. All right, guys. All right, where were we? Okay, so as we said, Georgia attempts to secure more land from the Creeks, and they weren't having it. They were battling that. The state of Franklin makes unlawful seizures of the Cherokee land. The state of Franklin makes unlawful seizure of the Cherokee land. What is the state of Franklin? What state is that? Where's Franklin? Where's Franklin? Who knows where Franklin is? Where is the state of Franklin? What state are they referring to? Are they talking about Florida? I don't know. Maybe we'll check that out on the map. James White, the newly elected federal superintendent of the Indian Affairs, secretary to tries to mediate between Georgia and the Creeks. Secretary Knox report on a plan for the military action. Knox report on the dispute between North Carolina, Georgia, and the Indians. The report of Congressional Committee on Federal and State Relations. Georgia is unable to carry out any particular listic policy. The congressional proposal for dealing with the Southern Indians. Georgia hopes to secure for herself Indian secessions already made. Do you notice how they refer to each place and state and all these different things? They'll say her, the woman being the land. Make sure you guys understand that's a part of law. Going into the law of the land, the law of the land, the law of the body, the law of the ionic womb, the law of the black womb. Congressional resolutions for the protection of the Indian lands. North Carolina, in opposition to the federal Indian policy, is also unable to give proper financial support for the federal negotiations with the tribes, failure of the Cherokee and the Creeks. This is just it's crazy, right? It makes you just see how manipulative, these people have been, even when it comes to the laws, right? When we think about the laws of the land and all the laws that come in, right? Everything you hear. So when they implant the black seed into the womb, right? And they invade the land, that is invading the land. Once the seed is planted into the womb, right? That's the invasion, the entire invasion. Even if you're thinking about the raping of the women, the children, all the sodomy and things that these people have went through at that time, that was the pillaging of the land and the people, the pillaging of the womb, the improper donation of a black seed that would create a mixed breed. Once this mixed breed is there, there's a bastardized child that is left behind. They invade the lands, they move on and they go. They invade the lands, they move on and they go. They leave certain people around to till the land, to keep it a certain way. They bring more in. After a time, they start to whiten it out even more. They assume the land, they give it a new name. Now they've named it over. Now they have a new place of being. Trying to create a history. When you have no history, you have to create one. When you have no history, you have to formulate one, and you have to create a story that goes along with that history that you've created. Cherokee, what's up, sis? Peace, peace, peace. Yes, yes. The state of Franklin was an unrecognized proposed state. Oh, hold on, sisters. But see what I told y'all? What my chat, everything. My chat don't be playing around. Sis said the state of Franklin was an unrecognized proposed state located in what today is East Tennessee. What did we just say? Didn't I tell y'all they had been talking about the same thing with the Melungeon people? This was going on in the same time. It told you the timeline, 1776, 70, all this timeline. This was the same thing that these Melungeon people were starting to be created because they were invading in this time. They were starting to plant the seed. As I said, they planted the seed in these mountains, creating these people, these witch people that we were just showing, all these different things. And these they call them witches because they had traditions from our people. Our people, we had certain spiritual traditions. So because they had these traditions come down from their ancestry, even though they didn't know it was from a pure bloodline because they had been mixed and whited out, it allowed them to still have some of that coming down through the area that they were in, because this is all they knew. Their ancestry came down from the same places. Just Keep that in mind. All right, let's finish this up, guys. We're going on 2 hours. I'm gonna try to finish this out in a few minutes. I hate to be like, oh, we're gonna do a part 2. I owe y'all like 4 part 2s, but you guys get the gist of the information, a lot of times. So I'm gonna give you guys. Actually, this is a book I thought this was my file. I forgot this was a book I pulled up, so I can actually copy this, so you guys can check this out. Whatever we don't finish going over today. Yeah, this is from a Google book. And it's like I told y'all yesterday, I was telling y'all, I don't really have to do much research. I don't have to study really hard. I've been doing that for 30 years. There's information within my mind, the coding that unlocks when anything comes up that refers me, and then I'll just go check it out. I'll pull it up in the old information. Sometimes people are saying, hey, Sister Soul, drop that information. Hey, Sister Soul, can I get that information? It's not that I don't want to share, guys. Unfortunately, I can't. A lot of my information is very old. And a lot of it I'm pulling up through my Google documents. And when I pull it up through my Google document, if I share it, what I'm doing is sharing a link into my Google page. And I don't feel comfortable doing that, unfortunately. So I do apologize, guys, but I share whatever I can with you guys. But this is the book right here. The name of the book is, what is it? Federal Indian Relations. The Federal Indian Relations of 1774 to 1788. Let me put it in here, actually. Federal Indian Relations of, what is this, 1774 to 1788. 1788. So this gives the timeline of everything that was, in this time frame. And it's actually right on Google. You can download it from Google, so on and so forth. Yeah. All right, so you guys got that? Perfect. Let's finish the most of this part. I want to read a little bit more to you guys before we get out of here. I appreciate you guys so much. I appreciate your patience. Even when you have to wait for a minute or two for me to do something, like taking a call. You guys know I have my business as well, so I do have to sometimes, at least, even if I want to get back to a person, answer the call. So, yeah. It says, towards an Indian policy. The first statement, let me do something Sis be telling me to do as well. I'll put it out there just in case. Let me just put my banner up there. You guys do what you want to do. If you choose to, anything is always appreciated. I do donate and I do give a lot to other people. So, it's nothing wrong if anyone wants to help in doing that, because it does help me to do more. I'll just say that. All right. Okay. So, toward an Indian policy, the first statement of a policy of federal control, early tendencies toward decentralization of control of the Indian affairs. The management of the Indian affairs become a function of the War Department. The management of the Indian affairs become a function of the War Department. When you hear there's a war going on, it has something to do with getting rid of our indigenous in that area. Indian affairs in the Articles of Confederation, Spanish and English attempts to establish a monopoly over the Indian trade. Congress unable to supply presents and goods in sufficient quantities to keep the tribes friendly. You hear this? Let's just give you a little of your shit. Congress unable to supply presents and goods in sufficient quantities to keep the tribes friendly. Ain't that something? The problem of control of Indian trade is discussed in the Continental Congress, the plan of 1786, which is a final failure of the governmental controlled state trade. The trade carried on by private interest. The trade carried on by private interest in the North and the South, financial and Indian department. The education of Indian youth at the governmental expense, a war measure. The education of Indian youth at governmental expense, a war measure. What did I just tell you guys? They have these seeds. They have their bastard children all around the place. Then they'll gather them up. They start to training them. They have them ready for war. Y'all fighting for y'all country. We ain't gonna even get into that story anymore. If y'all don't get what I'm talking about from there, shit, it's not much more to say. The plan of the contest of Huntington for the civilization of the Indians conclusion. In the biography into that. So we're going to actually stop. I want to stop it because I have to read one more page. See, I can read one more page. I can read one more. Hold on, guys. Let me take a sip real quick. Yes, Theo, definitely, brother. Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you guys so much for joining me. Thank you guys for your positive energy. Thank you guys for actually adding in and giving other thoughts and input into things. I really appreciate it for sure. Peace. What's up, bro? Tayshawn, greatness to you, bro. Thanks for coming through. All right, so let's get to this real quick. Finish this out. Yeah, we're approaching the 2 hours quick. I'll go a little bit over if need be because I want to read a little bit more of this. So the collapse of the imperial control, right? The Indian problem was not new. For years, it had concerned the statesmen of England, France, and Spain, as well as the colonial leaders. The tribes were in possession of valuable land. The tribes were in possession of valuable land. Their trade was the cause of much rivalry, and their warlike abilities make them more formidable. Before taking up the main thread of the story, it will be necessary to give a brief review of the later stages of the British control, the Brits. In this chapter, therefore, we shall give a general view of the tribes during the final period of imperial control. It will then be necessary to see how the British machinery for management of the Indian affairs ceased to function, and also to note the early steps taken by the new government in its attempt to deal with the tribes. The Micmac was one of the more important northeastern Indian tribes. The Micmacs. I didn't know that was a tribe. I knew a Micmac. The Micmacs was one of the more important, so they were one of the higher ranking northeastern Indian tribes. It occupied parts of Nova Scotia, Cape Breton, and Prince Edward's Islands, the northern part of New Brunswick, and probably southern and western Newfoundland. This group, along with the smaller tribes of St. John's and Nova Scotia, were the principal nations with whom the Continental Congress dealt. On the whole, the Indians, that just didn't sound right. Shit, let me go back, y'all. I don't even like the way that was coming out. This group, along with the smaller tribes of St. John's and Nova Scotia, were the principal nations with whom the Continental Congress dealt. On the whole, the Indians of this region played one of the least important roles. The Iroquois tribes were located in central New York and northern Pennsylvania. The Iroquois tribes were located in central New York and northern Pennsylvania. This is according to an estimate of 1774. This group numbered between 10,000 and 12,000 souls. Do you guys see this? I'm going to read that again. This gets into the spirit nature of it, right? It's telling you right here in your face. According to an estimate of 1774, this group numbered between 10,000 and 12,000 souls. It says souls. Their location within striking distance of one of the rich grain sections of the country, and artwork, one of the main routes into the West, as well as their fighting qualities, made these tribes an important factor in the northern Indian affairs. Man, it's getting deeper and deeper, ain't it? Who want to help me read? Because I don't even want to stop right now. I'm getting tired. Actually, let me go get me a little drink, guys. Let me get me a little drink. I've been drinking this warm tea, which has my throat feeling a little better. My sinus have been bothering me. I don't know what the hell they got going on with this weather up here. Sis said it's because of smoking sometimes, but it is what it is. That usually doesn't bother me. I've just been having these problems more lately, but man, I'm telling you, I'm about to make me some iced tea real quick, guys. It's going to take me a quick minute. Yeah, let me put you guys on something real quick. We're going to get into the rest of this. Let me drop the link too. Maybe I can get a brother or two up here that want to chat on this, because this is what it's doing. It's exposing the shit. It's telling y'all what. Y'all know I like to bring this truth out. We know we like to break down the portals in the mind. We like disseminating things so these mazes not putting up, so you running around in circles. You don't know what's going on. You're confused. You're wondering what's going on. No, we say this right in our face. Y'all can't hide nothing from us, because what the truth will come to the light. What y'all said? Y'all heard that saying since you were a little kid, right? The truth will prevail. The truth will come to the light. Who is the light? I keep telling y'all the light. Y'all the light beings. Y'all the energetic light being. You are the light. You are the way. You are the truth. You are the word. You are the living word. You are the light. You are the energy of this universe. So the truth shall prevail and the truth shall come to the light. That's facts. Sis wrote it just as I was saying it. That's facts. That's right, sis. That's facts. Period. Period. Ain't no way around it. Let me see. I'm about to play something for y'all. We don't even get into no music, none of that stuff. I'm about to play a little bit more information. Just, I don't even want to get y'all off track. I don't want to get the wrong vibration. I'm going to play something for y'all real quick just so that y'all can stay in tune with what we're talking about real quick. When I get myself together, I'm getting a little cotton mouth. We had about 2 hours. I can do up to about 2:30. I definitely want to read a little bit more of this book for you guys. Yes, Grandis says, Grandis to you, babe. Hope you're having a great morning. Woke up with the perfect of energy, everything thriving and moving just as it should. You already know. Okay, let's see. Something I can play for you guys real quick that relates to this. There's so many videos. I've been wanting to do these watch. Oh, I could do this one. Oh, it's not hooked up. Oh, I turned the Bluetooth off. Hold on, y'all. We about to get it going.
Power on.
We got it turned off because we weren't using it.
Bluetooth pairing.
Hold on a second.
Bluetooth connected.
All right, let's get it.
Sam Langford was possibly the greatest fighter who ever lived. He was a
Check this
man
out.
who weighed anywhere from 145 to 160 pounds. And within a short time, very few heavyweights would risk their undefeated record or risk the title against him.
He could call a round better than Ali. One time he comes out for a round and, second and third, and he touches gloves, and the opponent says, "What are you touching your gloves for? This is the last round." He said, "For you it is."
Sam was born in 1886 in the Canadian province of Nova Scotia. By the time he was 15, he had made his way to Massachusetts, where he found his calling as a fighter and would later become known as the Boston Tar Baby. Langford was no ordinary man. Inordinately long arms with bone-crushing power in both hands and an uncanny sense of distance. Spectators were continually baffled how a man standing only 5 feet 7 inches tall could batter even the biggest heavyweight contenders. Sam was a pioneer for the technical side of boxing and a connoisseur when it came to punishing a fighter's vital spots.
How have I not ever heard of this guy before? Some of his contests were 60 to 100 rounds.
Nova Scotia Sam Langford was one of the greatest boxers of all time. ESPN also ranked him the second hardest puncher of all time. Small man with a big punch.
Langford's first encounter with greatness was against the lightweight legend Joe Gans. Gans was the first ever African-American to win a world title. Even the most bigoted of reporters declared Gans to be the greatest fighter the ring had ever seen.
Joe Gans triumphed at the start of the 20th century, holding the lightweight crown for 6 years.
Gans dominated the ring. He became known as the Old Master. He won 158 of his 196 fights.
Joe Gans was unbelievable. His defense, his jab. Here is a man who invented it. He was that good.
Sam was only 17 years old when Gans was 29. The Old Master introduced Langford to a level of boxing he'd never dreamed existed. But that didn't stop Sam from giving Gans the unholiest of lickings. One reporter covering the fight felt Sam beat the champion in a manner that left no doubt, and Gans, who was at one point out on his feet, later acknowledged an agreement. Langford had won, but at the weigh-in, Langford failed to make the 135-pound limit, and he would not be awarded the title. Less than a year later, Sam was matched up with the Barbados demon Joe Walcott. At that time, he was considered by the majority of boxing authorities as the greatest welterweight champion ever.
You go down in the history along with the original Joe Walcott as the greatest welterweight champion I had.
He was the first man to put a little fear into Langford. He also had a reputation for knocking out larger men. But knowing the title was on the line, Sam put on a scientific slaughtering. Langford was able to draw blood from the champion's mouth, and by the final bell, the crowd felt Walcott had met his master. Controversially, the fight was ruled a draw, a decision that displeased many of those in attendance. A few years later, Walcott would be knocked out by a fighter called young Peter Jackson,
Y'all like that story? That's a great one too, right? That's a great story. We can finish that out at the end of this part of the book. I'm going to get into finishing this out real quick. I appreciate you guys' patience once again. You know, I got the fire chat. Y'all so patient. Y'all awesome. Okay. Now it says, in the country north of the Ohio and east of the Mississippi were numerous tribes. Remember, we read in the old book, guys, the one before, it was talking about how many tribes it was. Remember, it told us about the 2 great nations, and there were many tribes. Here's another confirmation of that here in this book. And remember, I keep telling you guys about the 2 great nations being Asia and America. They tied in together. It was actually Asia, America. It was the same place, right? We showed that on the map as well. Okay, let's get back into this. Most of whom were confirmed enemies of the colonists. Duh, obviously, we're not stupid. The Delaware or the Lenni Lenape were found northwest of the Ohio River in the valley of the Muskingum. I've never heard of that before. I hope I'm saying it right. The Muskingum, and along other streams of the eastern Ohio. Their lands joined those of the Senecas. The largest and the most western of the 6 Seneca Lake is beautiful, actually. I've seen it. Western of the 6 nations. About the year 1770, the Delawares had received permission from the Miamis. Listen to this. The Delawares had received permission from the Miamis and the Piankishaws. The Pian or the Kishas, to settle the territory between the Ohio and the White Rivers in what is now the state of Indiana. Indiana is a beautiful place too. It's country as heck too. It's right on the other side of Chicago. We used to go there sometime for these church things, and like, man, you talking about country. The Shawnees lived in the valley of the Skiato and on the Pickaway Plains. They were to play an active part in a Revolutionary War. I'm going to read that again. The Shawnees lived in the valley of the Scioto and on the Pickaway Plains. They were to play an active part in the Revolutionary War, doing much damage in Kentucky, and upon them, the organized vengeance of the Kentucky frontiersmen was to fall most often. The Shawnees were closely united with the Delawares, and their villages were often intermixed. The Miamis and the Twitewees, together, which were associated tribes, and the Piankishaws, and Ways occupied the Wabash. They have a Wabash in Chicago. The Wabash country and the territory northwest of the Ohio. They were destined to take a prominent part in Indian affairs until after the war in 1812. So they were keeping sure to have some type of role in what was going on in their affairs. The chief seat of the Ottawas seemed to have been near the lower end of the Lake Michigan, extending along the eastern shore as far as the St. Joseph River. Some had settled in southern Wisconsin, while others had occupied territory with the Wyandottes along the shores of Lake Erie, from Detroit to Beaver Creek in Pennsylvania. The Potawatomis were a group continually moving southward and might be found anywhere from Milwaukee River through Illinois, north and east of the Sox, Foxes, and the Kickapaws. Also, in southern Michigan and in Wabash regions, the Winnebagos resided west of Lake Michigan in the region of Wisconsin Rock and Fox Rivers. In 1788, they were spoken of as living on a small island near the eastern end of Lake Winnebago. So I think we're going to stop right there, guys. What do you think? You guys enjoyed that? You just dropped me some. Okay, bro, I'll check it out. You want me? Is it something you want me to pull up now? If so, let me know before we get out of here. Let's see. Yes, yes. Heard of the time my husband's body roaming through cities. Yes. Absolutely. I don't want to go to my email if I don't have to, brother. I'll need to open a new screen. Is this something you want me to just look at, or Something you think was important. Somebody was in the black chat. Oh, you jumped up. I didn't even see you, bro. I'm sorry. I had stepped away. Did you want to pop up? Is something you could share real quick? Let me put the link back out. If you want to jump up real quick, you can do that. And then you could share a screen. I don't know if you want to do that or not, but you definitely can do that. You're welcome to do that. I just didn't see you in the back. Sorry about that. Okay. I'll give him a second. I'll just read a little bit more while we wait and see if he pops up. If the bro want to share something. Okay. You would just give me the link. Okay, cool, perfect. So what I'll do is I'll pull that up now. Oh, that is the link. Okay, let me see. I just saw the private chat a message. Okay, perfect. Let's see. Pull it up. This tea so good, y'all don't even know. Y'all need to be getting some of this tea. Okay, let me see. The Yuki Indians of Southwest Virginia and their 1857 roll. Look at this, bro. Just pulled it right up, and look, we just was talking about it, and here he pulled it right up for me. Pulled it right up for me. Dang, he wanted me to start the reading. You ain't gonna get me to start reading no more. I told you I was done, bro. Don't play with me, because you know I want to keep going. But we're gonna definitely do this. This is actually part 3 of that witches stuff, and I've just been going a little bit more into that. But we're gonna we're gonna cover a lot of stuff. Y'all know I don't never stick to one topic. Usually a lot of this stuff it just covers one thing is covered after the next, another thing is covered after the next. So we run into something else, we'll start talking about something else. So you know how it goes. The next build, I'll try and make sure that we incorporate that into that, bro. I'm gonna make sure I do. I'm gonna send it to myself in the email and make sure that we go over it. Appreciate you, bro. All right, guys, I'm about to be out of here. We just a little over 2 hours. This was perfect time and great bill. It was cool. I didn't get too overwhelmed. My throat got a little dry. I was able to get me a little drink. Did you guys want to hear the rest of this story? I'm not sure if you guys wanted to hear the rest of the story. If you did want to hear the rest of the story, I could play the rest of the story for you guys real quick on Mr. Sam Langford. And are you guys familiar with Sam Langford? Anybody want to hear it? I'll play it on the way out real quick. Let me know. Put a one in the chat if you guys want to hear the rest of that Sam Langford story on this famous boxer that was awesome. I will do that. And thank you so much again, Lucky, for the link, brother. I'm going to check that out. That was like perfect. You see how it just was saying it. It was talking about that war and what was going on. And then sure enough, you turned right around and had the exact same information. So definitely. All right. So I'll just play it on the way out, guys.
Would later be convincingly beat by Langford, further solidifying Langford's claim as the best fighter in the welterweight division.
He started his career a healthy lightweight, but he always had his eyes set on going for the heavyweight division.
Around that time, there was another black fighter who was garnering praise from the boxing world, Galveston's Jack Johnson.
One of the most formidable fighting machines in boxing history. A man who was to stand overwhelmingly supreme above the other fighters of his era.
At his best, he was a superb athlete and considered by many the best defensive fighter in the sport.
Johnson was destined to become the heavyweight world champion, and Sam wanted to be the man to derail Jack and better his own reputation. 28-year-old Johnson, who stood at 6'1" at 30 pounds of the 20-year-old Langford. Regardless of their admiration for Langford, even his fans didn't believe he would go the distance. Early in the fight, Johnson hit Langford with a left that bladed his mouth. In the 6th, Jack drove a right uppercut into Sam's chin and sent him crashing to the canvas. Again in the 8th, a left hook directly to Langford's mouth put him right back on the mat. But Sam got up and was also able to demonstrate his finesse as he cleanly landed a right to Johnson's jaw after feinting to the body. In the 9th, Langford landed a left hook to Johnson's midsection that caused him to drop his guard and gasp for breath. The fight went the distance, both men bloodied and bruised. There was no doubt in the spectators' minds that Johnson was the victor. But little Sam won the heart of the crowd, and he was the man they cheered for.
He was the man.
Most fighters would have slumped back down a division after such a loss. but Sam was still eager to mix it up with the big boys. One heavyweight brawler named Fireman Jim Flynn agreed to meet Langford. Flynn made some derogatory remarks towards Sam in the build-up to the fight, but Langford, all too familiar with these types of comments, still planned on giving the crowd a lengthy show. It wasn't until Sam discovered he was only getting paid a quarter of the amount that Flynn was receiving when he said, "This is going to be the shortest fight you ever did see." Moments into the first round, Sam feinted with a right, then swiftly brought up a left uppercut that jarred Fireman Jim's jaw with such force that it was heard throughout all the arena. Flynn fell face first. He was muttering inaudible gibberish for 5 minutes before he started to make sense again. Almost 10 years later, Jim Flynn would knock out a young Jack Dempsey in the very first round.
Knock the taste out of his
Sam's
mouth.
reason for fighting heavyweights was because the fighters in his own weight class, the middleweight division, weren't so eager to taste the tremendous power he possessed. Langford had to actively convince others to fight him, to the point where the press labeled him Beggar Sam. A man known as the Michigan Assassin was the champion at the time. With an impeccable record of 46 knockouts out of his 49 wins, is most remembered for the time he dropped heavyweight champion Jack Johnson.
Johnson is down. He was a terrific right to the jaw.
Stanley Ketchel was one of the all-time great middleweights, and he was a great fighter and a hungry fighter and a street fighter kind of a guy.
To get a shot at Ketchel's title, Langford first had to agree to meet him in his 6th-round no-decision, non-title fight for little money. Sam wasn't happy about it, but he knew it was probably his only shot at getting a legitimate fight in the future. When the champion tried his famous Ketchel shift move to set up a knockout blow, he quickly discovered Langford's defensive prowess, as he was no longer anywhere close enough for the punch to land. Sam made it a fast-paced fight, but made sure Ketchel had an even amount of success.
Langford was told not to hurt Stanley Ketchel, and Ketchel, midway through the fight, decided to try and knock out Sam Langford. Langford, in the course of defending himself, just brutalized Stanley Ketchel, but held back from knocking him out.
Some of the audience were of the opinion that Ketchel deserved the victory, having forced the action, but since the vast majority of punches didn't land, the other members of the crowd didn't see how he possibly could have won. The contest definitely entertained enough to warrant a rematch. Unfortunately, Sam never got his big money fight, as later that year, Ketchel was murdered on his farm by hired help. By 1910, Sam's main aspiration was to win the heavyweight world title. Jack Johnson was now the champion and had a disdain for Langford.
I fought Jack Johnson once before Johnson became champion, and Johnson wouldn't face him again. Just as Jack Johnson had chased Tommy Burns around the world. Nobody knows that Sam Langford chased Johnson around the world for a shot and kept chasing him. And when he finally cornered Johnson, Johnson's answer, drawing the color line, was, "Sam, nobody wants to watch two black men fight for the heavyweight championship."
Jack had once agreed on paper to give Sam a rematch, but then later reneged on his obligation. European fight fans, bitter over Johnson's avoidance of Langford, declared Sam to be the world's true champion.
Jack Johnson wanted easy matches, and easy money meant that the most deserving black challenger of the day, Sam Langford, would be forced to box in the shadows with little hope for a title shot. Instead, Langford fought other black boxers over and over, 10 times each against Sam McVeigh and Joe Jeanette.
Langford no longer had any issues dealing with heavyweights, and the fact that Sam could stop former Johnson opponents in a quicker and more impressive fashion only solidified the idea that he was the most deserving challenger. At one point, Langford's team offered up Johnson's prerequisite amount of $10,000 to fight him, but the looming Johnson-Jeffries mega fight shut down any negotiations. In 1912, Langford's hope of a rematch was finally extinguished when Johnson was charged with violating the Mann Act and would spend the rest of his time as champion in exile. Finding willing American opponents to face him was a serious problem for Sam, so he traveled the world and became a celebrity pugilist.
Langford went on to compete all over the world, with many fighters refusing to get in the ring with him, some because he was black, and others just because they feared him.
It was a different era in so many ways. Record keeping wasn't very good, but apparently he was in 200 to 600 fights.
International fans praised him for his exceptional power and fitness and loved his witty, quick-thinking trash talk. A Sam Langford fight was a can't-miss attraction. Mike Shrek was expected to put up a good fight, but Langford punished him so thoroughly in the first minute that the police stepped in and ordered the fight to end. John Lester Johnson
I
beat
still
and broke
don't
the
see
ribs
you,
of a
Big
young
Philly.
Jack Dempsey.
I don't know
but
what
couldn't
happened. I don't
stand
have
up
you
to
blocked. I
Langford's
went through
vicious
my thing.
body
You must
assault.
have me blocked.
Light heavyweight champion Jack O'Brien was lucky to not have his title on the line, as he was out on his feet by the fifth. And up-and-coming great Harry Wills was knocked cold twice in two of their early duels. Langford made a fortune overseas and was told he'd be welcomed back with open arms should he ever return. By the end of the 1910s, Langford had outlived his best fighting days. He bore little resemblance to the chiseled fighter he was 10 years earlier. In a fight against Big Fred Fulton, Sam was hit by a right to the temple that severed a cord to the optic nerve. And after a pain that he described as 1,000 needles piercing his skull, Sam permanently lost his vision in his left eye. Langford didn't believe he'd make it to an old age and never exercised caution when spending his money. His days of living lavishly and helping out struggling fighters were over. Sam was broke. Knowing no one outside of boxing was going to employ a destitute, partially blind ex-fighter with no skills, Sam was forced to prolong his fighting days. He no longer had his judgment of distance and quick reflexes, but he was still capable of flattening even the biggest of men. The Roaring 20s had arrived, and with it, boxing's new cash cow, Jack Dempsey.
And he goes to plead with Jack Dempsey's manager, Doc Kearns, for a shot at Dempsey. And Kearns said, Sam, we were looking for somebody easier. He was a blind man, one eye, 40 years old. That's how great Sam Langford was. And nobody's heard of him. For shame.
By the end of his career, all of his fighting prowess had gone. Managers now used the Langford name to build up their fighter's record, all at Sam's expense. Almost completely blind now, he depended on someone to guide him into the ring. His days as a pugilist officially ended in 1926 when he was stopped by a mediocre fighter in the second round. Despite a career of fighting the very best opposition in all weight categories, he was never rewarded with a title. If fate hadn't dealt Langford such a cruel hand, he probably would have been a 5-weight world champion. Although only surviving on handouts and benefit nights, Sam Langford never lost his joyful demeanor and positive outlook and was a man forever content.
He disappeared, and he was found in the early 50s, half-starved, living in a cellar in Boston. And they interviewed him, and Langford was an unusual man. He was never bitter. He said, well, I've got my guitar, I've got my memories, I'm okay.
In retirement, he went totally blind, and efforts were made to restore his sight.
Well, Sam, tell me, how long have you been ill? I've been ill for the last 5 years. I tell you, boys, it's great to be able to see again. When you can get out and look at the birds, young birds going by.
If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe.
So, I'm not going to say too much. Just put a little something on the screen for you guys to look at and like kind of ponder upon. I'm going to go through a couple of picks. And yeah, when it comes to that, we're going to play one goodie going out. And yeah, that'll be it. Y'all, history is not our story. Y'all, history is not our story. The lies, the dissemination, the acts, the pretending, that's all over. Like, we are done, and we have exposed all other freaking lies.
Stack that bitch up, Mike.
Yeah, truth can't be told, it gotta be realized. Truth can't be told, it gotta be realized. Freedom ain't free, it ain't legalized. Truth can't be told, it gotta be realized. Freedom ain't free, it ain't realized. Freedom ain't free, it ain't realized. Freedom ain't legalized. Realize, realize. Freedom ain't free, it ain't legalized. Real eyes, realize. Freedom ain't free, it ain't legalized. Real eyes, realize. Yeah, slavery was a long time ago. How? Same motherfuckers still here right now. Colonized on our own land, they ahead of us. Changed our name so much they scared of us. Children of the sun, y'all don't compare to us. Perfect people, this ain't y'all area. Talking about America, pale-faced people, this ain't your area. Even up the playing field, bitch, I'm darn. How you a victim, bitch, you a Karen. Cognitive dissonance, you don't need sperm. You got white privilege, so you don't need sperm. Looking at my homeland, man, I can't believe her. Colonists came here, they ain't never leave her. Indians ain't die off cause we here. You ain't got a lot, just say you won't be here. How you American but not indigenous? 400 years still ain't get rid of us. All Europeans, naturalized citizens, made all the Indians niggas on the census. 1492, we was on the fences. Civil rights movement, we was so defensive. Black Wall Street, whites got so offended. Common law rights, gave us amendments. Thank God don't speak truth, that's alright. First slave 1619 was alright. 1200 wasn't no continent, alright. Europe named after a black woman, alright. Grafted, it come from us, do the research. Go within, quit listening to the teacher. And the new kid got voice coming out the speaker. Cut our trees down and made us weaker. Really they foreigner, the shit gets deeper. Whites don't know where whites come from either. I'm Aboriginally, we come from the ether. Ruling over us in our land, that's evil. Being colonized right now, black people. Prisoner of the war, that's why it ain't equal. Wake up everybody, don't be no sheep. Freedom ain't free, really freedom is illegal. And we can't get mad at this. Whites act like we can't see their advantages. Privilege is real, they working in management. Low down dirty, but they calling us savage. They want you to think they above us. All white people are part-time judges. I ain't no
fake,
but I
fake,
ain't no
fake,
sucker.
fake, fake.
But they my brothers. Been lied to, I got built up anger. You built everything, still waiting on the savior. Don't call yourself black, please do me that favor. Black tourmaline will protect you from a hater. Listening to your oppressors is dangerous. Gave us a Bible and stole our nation. Said we couldn't read what we didn't know the language.
Y'all see this? Y'all see this?
American
Y'all
Indian.
see this?
Skin copper color look just like a penny. Wanted our land and you called us stingy. They gotta pay attention. We got ancestors, but the papers is missing.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
We don't want that in us. George Washington is the ninth president. Look it up. United States only 10 square blocks.
Look it up.
People really the minorities. Look it up. Courtrooms don't got authority.
Check it out, check it out, check it out, check it out, check it out, check it out.
Man, it's really not me.
Check it out, check it out, check it out, check it out, check it out, check it out, check it out. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.
History.
Wake up.
History. It's his story.
Wake
history,
up.
It's his story. History. It's his story. It ain't my story. History is his story. It's his story. Probably ain't your story. History is his story. It's his story.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up.